So in the last session, we have discussed what is your auto boxing and unboxing, and I forgot to discuss this small topic which is called as annotations. Okay, so basically, annotations is not a small topic, as I said. It is a very big topic and very so means a lot of advantages. What a lot of the different aspects are there with respect to annotations. But for your syllabus, I think all those things are not required. Let us keep the things with respect to annotations simple. With respect to a Java, the purpose of annotations is just to give us some information. Some information. What kind of information I'm talking about? Say, for example, generally you will be having a different methods with respect to program, right? What I'm talking is, say for example, if you are considering a thread class, you have a methods something like a start and a run methods are there, right? Hope you remember these two things, right? Now when I'm implementing a run method, I have to write something like public void run, right? So why I have to write this one public void run? Because run method is, I'm not writing my own run method, I am extending from my parent, right? Who was the parent for this one? Your thread class was the parent for this particular method, right? So what I'm saying is, this run method, I'm not writing, I'm not giving a definition for this. That means this is not a user defined, not a freshly user defined method. Rather, this is a method which is coming from the parent, right? When it is coming from the parent, can I say that, am I overriding this particular method? Yes, obviously you are overriding a method. Is there any implementation with respect to parent? No implementation is there with respect to parent. Now you are going to do the implementation, right? Now, what I mean to say is, this method is not a user defined method. Rather, this is the method which need to be overridden, right? So this is a method which need to be overridden. Now, when a person sees a program, see, forget that you assume that you have a one program in front of you, right? So in that particular program, you wrote a method something like this, public void run, right? So the person who doesn't know thread concept, the parent means a thread class contains this particular run method and all, because when you are writing a program, it will not be just a thread classes, right? You might be using a different other concepts also. Okay, now, with respect to a programmer, it will be confusing for him whether you wrote a user-defined method or system-defined. That means, are you overriding a methods or are you creating a methods freshly? Right? Are you able to understand what I'm explaining? What I'm saying is, with respect to particular program, any program, you will be having n number of methods. Okay, in all those n number of methods, that means out of all those n number of methods, it will be a bit confusing how many of them are a user defined methods and how many of them are overridden methods, right? Bit confusing. To have a better clarity, to give a clarification saying that this is a user defined method and this is a overridden method, you have some notations, you can use some notations, right? So that notation is nothing but annotations, right? Now, how you will be giving annotation means, you will be writing at the rate symbol. Okay, you have some standard annotation keywords, right? If I am writing override, right? So what it indicates is, there is an annotation created. What is the type of annotation? The annotation type is a override. So this gives an indication to both JVM and as well as the user who is seeing the program, saying that after this particular line, whatever a method or whatever thing you have, that one is nothing but overridden method, right? I'm saying you will not be having a just a override, you have a other different methods also. So it means clear indication saying that uh, the following statements are uh, indicating that particular override, or what kind of a stuff you are going to do with that, right? So that is annotation. That means you are giving a basic information to a programmer or a JVM, saying that these things are nothing but annotated. Annotated in the sense that is a overridden method, and that is a this particular type of a method, something like that. You can create your own annotations, you can specify all those things, means that is not a part of this particular syllabus. So those are the different annotations, means that is the purpose of annotation actually. You have a different annotations, something like this, and you have a few more annotations. Just showing examples, these annotations, right? Whenever you are so means whenever you come across this particular at the rate symbol in between a program, that is for your information, saying that the next statement after this particular line will be with respect to this definition which you have given, right? Retention means with respect to annotations, or say for example you wrote a one program, and you have written certain comments in that particular program. Now you want those comments to be retained in a documentation. That means once you prepare a project, once you build a project, you will be preparing the documentation of that project, like what are the methods and you have used with respect to that and everything, right? So if you want a description whatever you have written in the documentation also, then you will be making that particular part, that particular block as a retention in the sense, see, once I am writing, say for example I wrote a retention. After the retention, I wrote some comments, right? So this is required for documentation, right? So now this particular line, if I'm extracting, so means if I am using any options and if I'm preparing a documentation, so this particular line will be available for me in the documentation, right? So you have a different annotations, and each annotations will have its own meaning and own place also, where can be written annotation, where not to write annotation, a lot of things are there. So all those details are not required for a time being. Just understand that at the rate symbol, if you are starting any statement with respect to at the rate symbol, those statements are nothing but annotations, okay? So annotations importance is it will just say what next statement will be, what kind of a statement the next statement will be. What question in the chat box? What is non-null annotation? Why it is used? If you have any values declared, say for example I am declaring a value a is equal to some 20, or else say example you are browsing any website, and you have some restrictions for that one, right? So I wanted to make a particular value as should be there, right? Non-null, right? So if a age value is a something, then only I wanted to open a page. That means I'm creating annotation saying that this particular value is required. Non-null annotation. Yes, we can create our own annotations, and you have a procedure for that. So what is the difference between comment and annotation? Comment is, see, again, here you have an example of a retention and this particular part, right? If I am creating a documentation, generally comments will not be processed, okay? Annotations will be processed, but there will not be any output of that particular annotation. See, when I'm writing this particular at the rate retention and writing a comment, means I am implicitly writing some statements, means this retention now it has got some value now. That means after this particular retention, whatever statement I have written, now this statement will be available for me in the documentation. Say for example, if I didn't write this particular retention, If I wrote only comment, okay, so this comment will not be available for me in a documentation. If I say retention, then I'm explicitly telling a JVM saying that I want whatever the statements that are there after to this particular retention, I want those things in a documentation. These are the instructions given to the JVM. Okay, and these comments, your JVM will never process these comments. Okay, so these annotations will be called as metadata. That means small information that you are giving to a JVM. Sir, why can't comments be on a documentation? See, in this example, whatever I am saying is with respect to a application IDs like a NetBeans and all, you will be having options for creating a documentation. When you are using those automated options, these comment sections will not be added into that particular documentation. That is how the application will be created, because comments means you might have written so many things, right? I don't want all those so many things in my documentation. I might be required only few statements, right? I'll be taking out of those statements by using a retention annotation. I just gave you an example of this particular comment. It will not be a same thing. Retention means something like if you are developing any application and you have a set some features with respect to versions. Okay, say I said like now I am developing one mobile application for an Android version for some 10 version. Okay, when I'm developing application for a 10 version, and I wanted a few features with respect to previous versions also. Okay, so whichever versions I require features with respect to previous version, I will retain all those features. Retain, retention, I require those features, right? So when I'm working with respect to version 10 of Android, why I'll be keeping up features or flexibilities with respect to version 1 or 2, right? So retention specifies what things you wanted to keep, right? So if we go deep into this particular annotations and all, actually this is a topic of some 4 hours to 5 hours, like how to create annotations, what is the purpose of annotation exactly, how that is helpful. So I'm not going much detail with respect to that. I'm just giving an overview. Once you are writing a certain annotation, this is a small information that you are giving to a JVM. Annotation are instructions for a JVM. Yes, I'm saying both. It will be instruction for a JVM. At the same time, it will give you a clear picture what exactly the next statements are, even with respect to programmer. Right? In the place of a retention, in this example of a retention, it is instruction for a JVM. Okay? In the place of a override and all these things, it is both instruction for a JVM and as well as for the user also. Now user can understand that this is not a user defined method, rather it is the overridden method from a parent class. Right? As this particular statement is giving you some information, so annotations are called as metadata. Meta means overall picture, overall idea, kind of a summary kind of a stuff. Can we use annotations inside a method? Can be. Shall we proceed further? Okay. Now, the important topic which we need to discuss with respect to this session is, which is called as generics. Generics. What is generics? Before we go with what is generics, let me show you a small problem. Then we will discuss how to solve this particular problem and how exactly generics is solving this particular problem. Okay. Now, before we go, okay, let me explain you a problem statement. Problem statement is something like this. Say for example, I wanted to build one directory, right? Names directory. Names directory in the sense, I wanted to develop, say for example, I wanted to develop one website. Okay. In that website, I just wanted to list the possible names, right? That might be useful for people who wanted to give different names for their child. Okay, so intention is this one. In one website I wanted all the names. Say for example, if I am taking a letter A, so on this particular letter A, I wanted all the possible names which are starting with the letter A, right? So now if I take a letter B, so I wanted all the different names which are starting with the letter B, right? So this is my requirement. Now what I will do is I will start gathering all the different names from a different people, because as a single person I cannot list out all the names and all, right? So what I will do is I will, with respect to my contacts, I will call everybody and I'll ask like I am developing application something like this. Please help me and give me a names with respect to all the possible alphabets. Later I will segregate everything, right? So intention of application is a simple. I just need to have a collection of a different names. Right. Now, each person will be sending a data in a different format. We cannot say like how a people will be sending. Okay. Now, what is my intention is whatever might be the type they have sent, whatever might be the type they have sent, whether they have sent in a file, whether they have sent in a some database and shared a link of that particular database, I'm least bothered, right? So now what I will be doing is whatever the names they have sent, I'll be retrieving everything into a string array, because I wanted to display later those things into a website. Okay. Now let us see a small example about what I am talking. Here I have a simple main method declared. So within this particular main method, let us say I have a string array, right? So let me give it as a names is equal to new string array of I'll say I'm expecting some 1200 names, right? Now with respect to s of 0, that means first element is equal to ABC, right? S of 1 is equal to XYZ. Some names have been entered, right? Now say for example, I what I am saying is this is a data which I have retrieved now, right? I got some 1000 2000 names. So from that 1000 2000 names, I'm saying at a first name I have a ABC and the second I have a something called as XYZ. Now say for example, if with respect to s of 2, that means third name, right? So can you imagine, now I have a file in front of me, I am just checking that file and I'm saying the first entry with respect to this file is a ABC and the second entry with respect to this particular file is a XYZ and the third entry with respect to this file is something like a 10. Now what I said is whatever the things I have got from other ways, right? I am assigning everything to my string in my application, right? So what was the third value? Third value I got something as a 10. Is it feasible? Does the name can be a integer 10? If it is a 10, then it should be a double quotes 10, correct? Right? Now, if I try to compile this, if I try to compile this, will it show error? Oh, I gave a name self already. Okay. So what is the error it is showing? 10. You cannot assign to a array of a string, right? Incompatible types, right? int cannot be converted to string, right? So this is what it is saying. But the problem is, this is what I have got from the user only. Are you understanding? When I got an error during compilation time, right? So now what I will do is, I will say to a person called, say for example, this data is given by a Jagdish only. Suppose he has collected all the data and he said like, sir, these are the names which I have got, right? So later I will be sorting these things according to alphabetical order. That is the secondary issue. Now what I have done is, whatever file I have received from a Jagdish, I have just cross checking what names he has given to me. He has given in the first ABC, second he has given XYZ, and the third he has given a 20, right? When I compile a program, I came to know that this person has given a value 10 to me, right? So immediately I will call Jagdish and I'll ask, right, Jagdish, do you know any person with a integer called as a 10? Then immediately he will say, so no sir, that might be a by mistake, so please remove that particular entry and take out other values, right? Now whether I am getting an error during compilation itself, yes, during a compilation itself I got an error. So what I will do, okay, so I will remove this particular name, no problem with respect to this, things are fine now, right? Problem with respect to this one is, problem with respect to this particular approach is the size is the problem. Now, what I'm doing is, I'm asking a Jagdish to give some names, right? Jagdish might have given 100 names to me, correct? But how much array I am creating? I am creating array of 1200. Out of this 1200, only 100 will be utilized now, right? Around 1100 values means that much space is not useful for me, correct? What I mean to say is, whenever you want to go with the type safety in the sense, I wanted only string value. If your requirement is you wanted only integer value, if your requirement is you wanted only character value, right? Going with the arrays is feasible, but the problem with the arrays is you cannot predict what is the size, means what size of array I have to create. That will be a problem. See, I'm talking about the problems itself. I didn't come to a topic called as a generics, but what I'm saying is, if your requirement is type safety in the sense, I wanted to have a values of same type only, right? So that is my requirement. Later I'll tell how that particular thing can be achieved from a generics. Now what I'm concluding is, yes, with respect to arrays you can achieve a type safety, but the problem is you cannot estimate what might be the size of array that you have to take. Is that clear? If you are clear, then I will tell one more solution for this particular type safety to be done without worrying about the size. Our main problem, what we have to address is the type safety in the sense, I want a values of a same type, I don't want a values of some different type. And if I'm getting a values of a different type, and those, so means if I'm assigning some different type of value, those things need to be intimated during compilation itself, right? If you are intimating at a runtime, then it will be a lot of pressure or a lot of work need to be done, last of rework need to be done. So not recommended to go to a runtime. During a compilation time itself, that should be intimated. Can I proceed to address the size issue? Okay, now requirement is the same. I wanted a values, I wanted a names, different names, I wanted to have a type safety, but the condition is I don't wanted to waste a size. This is the requirement. Now what I'll do is, I don't go with the arrays, because you are saying that if you are going with arrays you should know how many elements you are going to put, right? So what I'll do is, I will be using a concept called as collections. If you don't know what is a collection, don't worry, I'll show you a small example what exactly are the collections. Now Collections, in a collections you have a different data structures. Collections is nothing but collection of data structures. Your stack, queue, linked list, everything is a class implemented in a Java. So the group of all these classes is nothing but a collection, right? Out of all those things, let me use one collection which is called as array list, right? Array list al is equal to new array list. For array list, no need to specify a size. Okay. Now if you want to add elements into array list, you can directly specify those values. Dot add of, right? Double quote, say for example xyz, right? Elements have been added to that array list. Now array list dot add of 10, creating error. Whether type safety is preserved or not, will it show error or not? Let us just cross check. Before to that, if you are using array list, you need to import one statement, java dot util dot array list. Well is kept. Yes. See, what you are getting, see, with respect to array list, the third element you have added is a 10, but is it showing any error there while adding an element? It is just giving you a note saying that unchecked or unsafe operation, excellent, unchecked or so means these are unchecked. It is just saying that unchecked. That means I'm not going to check what type of a value you are going to pass, but whatever the value you are going to pass, I will just add those values into this particular array list, right? So this is what it is saying. Now, are we able to compensate with respect to our type safety? Means, are we achieving a type safety now? This is not showing any error, but while adding a value, that means while considering a value, I have literally taken a 10 as a value. When this particular error will be shown, let me write a statement, system dot out dot println of, say for example, al dot get of, what will be a element? This is index 0, 1 and 2, right? Now I'll be writing, this means retrieving a value, or else we'll do one thing. My intention is to have a string, right? So I will say from array list you get the value which is at a location 2 and assign that one to a string, right? So if you had added a string, then this line will not show you error. So if you have not added a string, obviously that particular statement will show you a error. Incompatible types. Object cannot be converted to a string. What it is saying? So it is saying that this particular element at a second is a object, so it is not able to convert to a string. Now what I will do is I will convert it to a string explicitly. Object I have got, I am explicitly converting it to a string and adding that information to a yes, right? So now let us just cross check, will it show error or not? Not showing error, but it is showing us some note information. If I run my program, will it work or not? See, during a runtime it is showing a error saying that java.lang.integer cannot be cast to a java.lang.string, right? When I am getting an error, I am getting an error during a runtime, not during a compile time. And what I said, I am comfortable if I am getting an error during a compile time, but if I am getting an error during a runtime, that is not feasible for me, right? Am I able to achieve this particular type safety now? Be clear with the objective. May be a bit confusing because you so means you don't have idea about collections and all. So now the collections is also new topic and the type safety is also new topic. So a bit confusion will be there. So I am repeating the statements once again. Our requirement was to give a type safety. Type safety in the sense all the values should be of a same type. That was a requirement. Now we have a two approaches for this to be done. First approach is by using arrays. If I'm using arrays, yes, I was able to go with a type safety. But the problem was I was not sure what should be the size of array. That was a problem. Okay. Later I felt like, okay, better not to go with the arrays concept. Let us go with something called as collections concept. Okay. Now I came to a collections, right? So collections, it is taking a value. It is not expecting a size to be specified before itself. But the problem is, if you are passing an integer also, it is accepting. When it is saying that the problem will be there, when you are trying to do the things at a runtime, it is saying there is a problem, right? These things are not feasible, right? It should not say like there is a problem during a runtime. When it has to say that there is a problem, it has to say there is a problem during a compilation itself. Clear? Now, how can it say that there is a problem during the compilation itself? Right? How it will say is if you are telling it before only if you tell the array list saying that don't accept all the random values, you idiot, you accept only one particular type, whatever I specify. Correct? Now what I'm saying is array list. Now it has been created simply, not specifying any type. I didn't specify array list to take only specific type of values. Right? I've just created array list. Now what I will do is I will specify this array list to take only string values. Right? I'll specify this particular array list to take only string values. Right? When I specify like this, right? What you are saying? You are telling that this array list is will accept only string value. Right? Now, if I try to add al.add of 10, right, it should show error saying that you have created array list which accepts a string value, but you are passing a 10. No suitable method found for add of int. Was it showing this error before? It was not showing that error, right? Now when I added this particular angular bracket followed by string, then only it is showing error. See, let me remove that one. This itself is the concept of a generics. Right? Now if I compile my program by removing that particular string, it is not showing any error. It is just showing us some warning. Right? When I run the program, then while retrieving it is showing error. Okay, so it is showing at a line 10. That means while retrieving it is showing error, not during adding a values. Right? Now what is my requirement is, you idiot, why you are checking at a retrieving of a value? Better it will be a better if you are cross-checking while entering the value itself. Correct? Now what I will do is, with respect to creation of this particular array list, during the creation itself, I will specify that you accept only string values. Right? So once I say that particular statement, right, so while adding itself, it will throw you an error saying that you don't have a provision to add a 10. That means this is fine. That means specifying explicitly what type of a data need to be accepted, specifying explicitly what type of a data need to be accepted is nothing but generics. Clear with the point? Am I achieving a type safety when I'm using a generics? Yes, you are not allowing a 10 to be added, right? Obviously, you are achieving a type safety. Am I worried about a size of a array list now? No, I'm not worried about a size of array list. How many number of elements you want to put? You can put, everything will be considered, and everything will be considered as an object. right? So whenever you come across this particular angular brackets, right, so within the angular brackets, if you have specified some type, right, so this will be your generics. A question in the chat box: what if you want both string and integer? Don't specify a generic, create a normal array list. Normal array list will take all the values. Or else if you have a requirement that one array list should take only integer, one array list should take only string, you create a two array list, specify that this array list should take only integer and another array list should take only a string values. Can be done. Can we create any class using generics inside a class name? Yes, can be. So that is our further discussion. Generics can be applied with respect to methods, with respect to constructors, with respect to classes. If you are clear with the basic concept, then we will see an examples that are there with respect to PPT. So once you have a basic idea, right, you can easily understand whatever statements have been written there in a PPT. Okay, and a basic objective of going with the generics is the concept of a type safety. I wanted to have elements of a same type, right? So when I say same type, it may not be only one particular string. It may be something like I wanted the two values, like a string and an integer, right? So I can have a hash map which will be taking both the string and integers at the same time. Can be. That means using this we are going to specify what type need to be accepted. Sir, what is collection exactly that we are using here? The collection class here, whatever we have used is array list. Array list is a one of a collection type. It will be a similar to arrays, but there is a slight difference between arrays and array list. Right, so similar to this, in a collection classes you have a list is there. List is also one of a collection class. Stack is there. Stack is another collection class. Queue is there. Queue is another collection class. You have a different collection classes. Got the point of a type safety and a syntax of a generics. Okay, so right, so let us go to a PPT, then we will discuss anything is required separately. Okay, oh, didn't need it as a slideshow. Let it. Generics, parameterized types. A class interface or a method that operates on a parameterized type is called generics. That means you are putting a restriction saying that this class should take this type, this method should take this type, this interface should take this particular type, right? Advantages of a generics: type safety. Hold only single type of objects in a generics, right? Typecasting is not required. No need to typecast the object, because generally whatever the input you are going to give, so those things will be considered as objects only. And the generics can be applied only on a objects but cannot be applied for a primitive types, right? I cannot write int in the bracket saying int type only you have to use. I cannot specify. If I have an integer class, then I can specify like integer need to be accepted, right? So with respect to our example, we have taken array list, right? Array list is nothing but a class, right? So for array list, we have specified this array list should contain only string value, right? So that is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, once again, okay. So in our example program, we have written something like this: array list of string. We have said that means now this array list should accept only string value, right? Now what I'm saying is this is a class name. For the class name, you have specified what type need to be accepted. Now in a similar lines, you can specify, if you are taking an integer class, you can specify integer only, something like this. But if you are writing a int, you cannot specify integer, right? So what I mean to say is This is not a class, right? When it is not a class, you cannot apply this generics to it. Clear? Okay. Array list of list is equal to new array list. That means before a generics, before adding a generics. So list dot add. I have added hi for this. So if I'm retrieving that, converting, so means when I was retrieving without writing a string, it was showing error to me saying that object cannot be converted to string, right? So I have written this particular explicitly string conversion. Then a string has added to this particular s, right? So same thing can be achieved by including this particular generics, right? When I'm saying a string, obviously input will be taken in a string. Then while retrieving, no need to explicitly perform this particular type conversion. I can directly write a list dot get of 0, right? One second, I will go in this example itself. Here we are specifying it as a string itself, right? Input will be of a string only. Now when an input is of a string, no need to explicitly write this statement. Okay, I can directly write of 0, right? So now it will happily display this particular ABC for me, right? If I don't have this particular generics concept, then the values will be considered as just the objects. When the values are just considered as objects, then it will show me error saying that you have taken input as objects and you are trying to print. See, objects cannot be converted to string. That means input, everything it has taken as an object, and you cannot explicitly, so means directly convert that particular object to. So this is what it is saying. But if I'm including this particular generics concept, obviously this whatever input it is reading, it will be of a string value itself. So when it is a string value only, no need to explicitly type convert that one and say that you are retrieving the string, right? So this is advantage of specifying something as a string, right? So compile time checking, obviously whenever you have got errors or mistakes, so if those errors and mistakes informed during a compile time means those are acceptable. If it goes to a runtime, then you cannot accept those kind of mistakes, right? Okay, so generics work only with the objects. You cannot specify that one with the integer. Okay, so here he is trying to give a int as a value. So these kind of primitive types cannot be used as a generics. Okay, so generic types differ based on their type arguments in the sense, say for example, if you are creating a string object, and in a generic you cannot specify integer, right? So you cannot say I am creating a string class and accept the integer. Can't be done like that. What you can do is whatever possible acceptances are there, out of those possible acceptances you can put a restriction, right? When you are saying that array list should accept all the objects, yes, it can accept all the objects, right? Either it can be a string, integer, whatever the type of objects are there, it can accept all those things. Now if you want to put a restriction on that particular acceptance, you can put a restriction by using the generics, right? So reference of a one specific version of a generic type uh, is not a type compatible with another version of a same generic type. That means int object you cannot use with a string object. That means you cannot equate something like this. Okay, so syntax of a generic class we have seen. If you are creating a one, then it will be a class followed by class name, type of parameter list. That means what type of a parameters it can accept, right? Followed by the class body, right? So creating a reference, we have created something like array list. list is equal to new array list, right? So in that case, you will be first specifying a class name followed by type argument list, what type you are allowed for that particular class to accept. Then variable name is equal to new class name of that particular type argument list followed by constructor argument list. Hope you can uh, get a instruction in mind if you are seeing this particular syntax statement. Array list string list is equal to new array list of string. I don't have any constructors, so this bracket was empty. This is what we wrote with respect to our example. Shall I proceed further? Okay. Now, type parameters can't be instantiated. You cannot write a in the bracket array list of string is equal to new string. Can't be written something like that, right? And you are a generic class. It cannot extend any throwable. You cannot create exception classes and all. So if you are going with exception classes and all, it will say don't go with the generics, right? So basic intention of a going with the generics is if you wanted to have a common type of a data, in those situations you are going with the generics. Okay, if your class is extending some exception class, then you are making a user defined exception, right? So when you are making user defined exception, it will not allow you to go with the generics part. Clear? And it cannot be used with respect to static methods also, because when you are making some class as a generic, obviously you will be getting a data after creating object of that particular class, right? So there is no meaning if you are making a static classes, and for a static methods, generics is not acceptable. Example, generic method. 1 second, I'll show an example. It will be a better clarity for you. Okay. Here is an example, not a bigger example, simple example. So I have directly displayed this example to you. From a main method, in a main method, I have a two arrays. One is integer array and another one is character array. Concentrate example carefully. You have another two variations of this one to understand, right? I'll take only this particular example and then we will wind up the things. Okay. Now, main method is there. Under a main method, you have an integer array and you have a character array. Now, your intention is to print these values, right? Integer array I wanted to print, character array I wanted to print. Now, I wrote one print method, print int array, print character array. Intention of writing this particular print method is to print these values. Correct? Now, how can I write that particular statement? That means how can I implement that particular statement? Say for example, if I wrote public static void print, if I'm not using a static, then obviously you have to create object, then using object as a reference you have to call this particular method. I don't want it to create object, I just wanted to call a method called as a print, right? So how you wrote a print method? By passing integer array as an argument. Integer array as an argument. Okay. So with respect to integer array as an argument, each element will be printed in a different line. Now, what happens is when it encounters a second statement, print of character array, it will show you an error saying that here while defining a method, you wrote as an integer array, but while passing, you are passing a character. Any questions? Right? So this example is again showing a problem because you have not used a generics concept here. Okay. So method has been written by using a integer as an argument. So it will accept only this particular statement of a print int array, but it will show you error saying that this cannot be done. Okay. If you want to print a character also, then you have to write one more method, same print method, but the argument should be a character array this time. Right? So what I mean to say is, with respect to this particular data, one print method. With respect to another particular data, another print method should be there. Name is the same, but argument which you are passing is a different. Just because of argument, you need to create a one more method itself, right? Now, see, same program, one print method is accepting integer array, another print method is accepting character array, right? If you write in this fashion, then it is acceptable. Yes, can be. It will print these things. Okay, I don't want to do in this particular fashion. I don't want to write two different methods. What I can do is, here with respect to this argument, instead of specifying integer or character, I can generalize that one, saying that some data type. I'm not saying integer only, I'm not saying character itself, I'm just specifying some type called a t. Here is an example modified version. Public static t specifies any type. Void print off. Before you were having an integer array, character array separately. Now I am saying a sum t followed by array, right? I'm least bothered what kind of a type you are passing, but all those elements should be of a same type. That is my requirement. Now, from that particular t, you take out each element, right? So from an array of elements, you are passing an element, right? From this particular element, you take out a single element and print that one, right? So in this example, I don't have a two print methods, I have only one print method. On a one print method, I have put a restriction saying that you have to use any of a type, same type, no problem. Okay, so wrote a two arrays, calling those methods. First time it will accept integer array, and the second time it will accept character array. Example, is it clear? Okay. So same concept of a generics, that means that angular bracket followed by a t, can be applied with respect to classes and a constructor also. Now I'll not be going with respect to classes and a constructor. I'll share you this particular recording. Go through the recording. First, be clear with what is the generics and how the generics can be used by going through this particular program, whichever I have displayed on the screen now. Once you are clear, you go through how to work. So means once you are clear with till this particular point, then you can use how a generics classes can be used. Examples are there, and how a generics constructors can be used. Examples are there, right? So if you have any questions with respect to generics, you can post me. We will discuss those things in tomorrow's first hour. Then we will start with our IO concept. Is that clear? Morning session, I have explained one lab program. Then we have started something called as auto boxing and unboxing. Now we have started with the generics. I explained what is the purpose of a generics, and I have shown a small program what is the use of that particular generics. I am giving you so means I am telling yourself to read generic classes and generics in a constructor. If you have any questions with respect to those two aspects, you can ask in the morning session. If you don't have a questions with respect to those things, then we will proceed with the IO part, right? So you can leave the session. After this class, I'll be sharing a class recording of both the sessions, and I'll be sharing this PPT also. Go through all these things.